and Catholic Children's Aid Society. We are beginning with the land acknowledgement. In the spirit and intent of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations, we acknowledge the traditional indigenous territories on which we gather at the beginning of all MASWO meetings. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Wendat, the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Métis, and the Mississauga of the Scugog and Hawata and Alluvial First Nation. By learning, understanding, and acknowledging, we wish to pay respect to Turtle Island, Mother Earth, and the rich Indigenous history of Ontario. Before beginning, I would just like to mention the house rules. Kindly turn off microphones and if possible, turn on your cameras. That would be really appreciated. And if you have any questions with regard to fostering, or if you have anyone, if you're asking questions on behalf of somebody, you can mention them in the chat box for questions and comments. Also letting you know that today's session will be recorded and archived on our social media platform. If you would like to share this with your colleagues, friends, or family, please feel free to do so. Today's session will be moderated by Mr. Siju Simon. A few words about him. Mr. Siju Simon is currently working as a supervisor for the York Children's Aid Society. He has extensive experience in the field of child protection. Siju completed his master's degree in social work from Pune University. He worked as a social worker for Asha Kendra and later served as its executive director. In 2002, he joined Sight Savers India, a British funding agency, as program officer and worked for the agency for 3 years. Siju moved to Scotland in 2004 and started his career in child protection. During his stay in the UK, he obtained a graduate diploma in childcare and child protection from Dundee University, London, and became a supervisor in child protection. Siju immigrated to Canada in 2011 and started his career in child protection as a casework supervisor with the government of Nova Scotia. Siju moved to Kingston CAS in 2011 as a team manager for CIC and resources. He left the agency in 2015 and joined Lanark, Leeds, and Greenville CAS as service manager. Siju has deep insights into child protection work, and he is able to blend multiple international perspectives in child protection social work. Siju is also an active community mobilizer and serves as the president of Kingston Malayali Association as well. Over to you, Mr. Siju.
Thank you, Noelta, for the introduction. And as always, MASWO has chosen another important and relevant topic for today's learning sessions. And I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to be the moderator of these sessions. Just before I start, a few words. The idea of foster care can be traced as far back as ancient Greek and Roman societies. Among many Asian communities, including Malayali communities and other collective communities, children residing with their grandparents or other extended family members in their care is not uncommon. At least, those of us who came here as first generation immigrants, we have experience of leaving our children. At least some of us have the experience of leaving our children in our parents' care or our family members' care, at least for a few months or few years of the first few months or years of our immigrant life in Canada. So therefore, in the literal sense, understanding fostering is not that difficult. However, not everyone, unless you are working in the child welfare sector, is familiar with the foster care arrangement through child welfare agencies that are mandated by legislation. So placing looked after children in culturally appropriate homes is a duty of child welfare agencies. However, it is not always easy to identify cultural appropriate foster homes for children coming into care from diverse background. It's mainly because of the scarcity of the diverse foster homes. Comparatively, the number of diverse or racialized families who show interest in fostering is very low. This may be because of the lack of awareness or due to the fear of the unknown. So presentations like this hopefully will break this barrier and create awareness awareness about fostering among minority and diverse communities. So today we have an amazing panel of 4 child welfare professionals from 2 different children's aid societies in the area with many years of experience in child welfare and foster care, who will walk us through in the different aspect of fostering mandated by legislation. So once our presentation is, one of our presenter is also a foster carer himself, and he will be, along with his family, with his wife, he'll be sharing his experience as a his experience in fostering over the last 7 years with us. So our hope is that after today's session, by end of today's sessions, our participant will have a better understanding of the foster care system in Ontario. So each presenter will have 20 minutes to present their particular topic, and there will be an opportunity to ask questions to the panelist after everyone's presentation. So now I'll introduce our first presenter. So our first presenter of the day is Stephanie Chris Balen. Stephanie's career began with the Catholic Children's Aid Society of Toronto in 2008. She's currently a resource worker with the foster care assessment and support team and manages foster care recruitment efforts for the agency. Prior to this, she worked as an ongoing worker and children's service worker, where her roles were to support families directly in the community and youth in the foster care system. Her passion is in helping families to find creative ways to work through times of conflict, struggles, and a transition to the well-being of the children in their lives. Stephanie will talk to us about what is foster care and why do children come into care. I would like to welcome Stephanie to this learning session and request her to start with her presentation.
Thank you very much, Siju, and I want to express thank you to the Malayali Association of Social Workers in Ontario for having myself, Lori, Latika, and Anthony here to share our time with you. So again, I'm here to kind of kick off the presentation and talk a little bit about what foster care is in a larger scope, and I'll be followed up by Lori and by Latika afterwards, who will kind of get into more of the details around fostering and what you can do to express your interest or ask more specific questions about becoming a foster parent. Thank you. Next slide. So what is foster care? I know that one of the most important aspects for you to recognize, and for those who are interested in foster care to recognize, is that foster care is a temporary service. And what I mean by that is when children and families are experiencing a challenging time, a time of crisis, if they're dealing with traumas in their lives, and the families are in a place where they can no longer provide care and safety for their children, who in the province of Ontario, a child is defined as someone between the ages of 0 and 18 years of age. What may happen is that a children's aid society may work with the family and support them by providing a temporary place of safety for their child or children. So, and again, we say temporary because here in Ontario, the primary goal of fostering is to reunite children back with their families. So as you can see in the second point there, we work very hard to keep families together and children in the home with their parents, with their grandparents, with their aunties, their uncles, their cousins, their brothers or sisters, whomever the family identifies as their family. Because and you know, cultures look at family differently, and that was noted very eloquently at the beginning of the presentation. So for some people, family means more than just their immediate family members. It's more than just your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, that Eurocentric nuclear idea of what a family is. And a nuclear family traditionally is identified as a mother or father and children, so a two-parent home within as one family unit. Whereas when we look at family from different cultural perspectives, you know, there's an understanding that family is defined by so much more than that, right? So your cousins can be your family, your neighbor across the street who you interact with, who you share, oh my goodness, excuse me, who you share regular conversations with. So in your neighborhood, in your village, in your community, all of those people you may identify as family. So again, as a Children's Aid Society, our goal is to ensure that a child remains with their family and with their community. So again, when children come into foster care, oh, we're not there yet. We'll go back to thanks. So again, we look for, before a child coming into care, right? Before a child comes into foster care, as a Children's Aid Society, we'll first look at who in that family may be able to provide that care for the child, instead of bringing them into a foster home where, frankly, that child is placed with strangers, right? Those strangers go through a vigorous assessment process, which Lori and Latika will discuss a little bit later on. But before we get to that point, Children's Aid Societies look to see who else is available. So is there an aunt? Is there an uncle? Is there a friend? Is there a family member who that child knows, who that family knows, who the child can be with during this time where maybe their parents or their caregivers are unable to care for them? So even in that respect, the care is intended to be temporary so that the child can be with their family. And then the other piece to remember is that foster care, foster parents, foster families, they're not replacements for the family. They are actually providing a service to that family. So foster parents, foster families are service providers to that family, right? We're not, as foster parents, we're not replacing a child's family. We're not replacing a child's parents. We're not replacing their extended family. We're actually providing a service to them so that they can return and be reunited with their family, because that is the ultimate goal of the Children's Aid Societies in Ontario. Our ultimate goal is to return that child to their family. Okay, next slide, please. So what is the commitment, right? The time commitment, unfortunately, is something that cannot be predicted. So when a child is placed in a foster home, it could be for any length of time. It could be for one day, it could be for a year, it could be for a few months, it could be for many years. And that is one of, I would say, the inherent characteristics of foster care, is that there is actually a fair bit of unpredictability. So it's really important, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. It's really important that foster parents are able to be flexible, work with the team to be able to navigate some of these obstacles, twists, and turns that may happen in plans for the child or plans for the family. So I can give you an example where I was working with a family, actually consisted of a single parent and her daughter, and there were some significant mental health issues that the mother was struggling with. Now, she did have extended family members, but due to, you know, some bureaucratic issues, some like red tape issues, that mother wasn't able to provide consent for that child to go with her family. Okay, so as a Children's Aid Society, we had to bring that child into foster care. So we did not know how long it would take for us to complete a kinship assessment and ensure that her family members were safe people to be able to place her with. And what ended up happening is that child came into foster care with the possibility, I mean, we initially believed that that child would be in a foster home for a few months until we, the Children's Aid Society, could do an assessment of, you know, who she could be placed with in her family. And it turned out that that child was only in care for a couple of days because the judge here in Ontario decided, no, you don't need an assessment, place her with her family right away. So in that case, that child was placed in a foster home with, you know, trained, very resourced foster parents. And, you know, they initially expected, okay, we're going to prepare, we're going to enroll this child for school. We think she's going to be here for a few months. And then in a matter of a couple of days, she was placed back with her family, which is a fantastic outcome, right? She wasn't in care for a long period of time, because we also know that outcomes for children are higher when they are with their family, just their overall outcomes as they grow into adulthood. They fare better when they're with family. So that was a wonderful outcome. Another example I can give you about the unpredictability of time is I had another child placed in a foster home as a baby. Okay, there was an initial plan to reunite her with her mother. Both parents struggled with transiency issues. They were homeless. They were struggling with substance use. So we were connecting them with community resources, connecting them with a local detox center, connecting them with all the services we could, but they continued to struggle. So even though the plan was to reunite this baby with her parents, that they weren't able to kind of pull things together in the time frame they needed to be able to plan for their daughter. Now in Ontario, there are timelines for how long a child can be in care for. It may differ province to province, it may differ internationally, but here in Ontario, for a child under the age of 6, a permanent plan has to be decided within 1 year of being in foster care. For children over the age of 6, so between 6 and 18 years old, the Children's Aid Society has 2 years to determine a permanent plan for that child. So for this baby in a foster home, right, the goal was 6 to 8 months. Her parents were going to secure housing, which we were helping them to do, connect with supports for the struggles they were having, which we also did. But unfortunately, that plan didn't pan out. So now this child had been in care. She was 8-9 months old, and we needed an alternative plan. So then we started assessing a plan for a biological family member outside of the city. And then that took some time. And as we got closer to the end of that assessment, so this is again this child's extended family, that assessment did not work out. So now this child's approaching her 2nd birthday, and that's 2 family plans that didn't work out. And now we're currently looking at adoption as a permanent plan for her. So here's a situation where a child came into care and the foster home anticipated she'd be with them for less than a year. And she's now been with them for going on 3 years, right? So again, just to demonstrate the unpredictability in what foster care can look like and the time commitment, right? Because the other important piece to remember is when children are placed in care, the idea is that they remain there until they're able to go to their permanent home, until they're able to go to a permanent placement. And the goal is always, again, for that to be their parents, their extended family, and if that's not possible, to an adoptive home. So what that means too is that as a foster parent, the goal is that, or the intention is that you're committed to that child for as long as it takes for them to move on to their permanent placement. So for some children, again, that could be a short time, and for others, that could be much longer, years even. The third point there says that some foster parents, they foster on a full-time basis, while others provide respite or relief on a temporary basis. So Latika is going to talk about that a little bit more later on in the presentation. But foster parents, again, they're providing a service to a family, but they may also need breaks, right? We're going to talk a little bit more about the needs of the children that come into care and the challenges that they may face. So as foster parents, when you're providing care for for any parent, really. Like, let's not even talk about foster kids, right? As a parent, if you're caring for children, sometimes you need a break. Sometimes you need someone to watch your child so you can go have dinner with friends, or someone to watch your child so you can, go exercise, or someone to watch your child so you can take a weekend away, right? Or spend some time with friends. So it's about a self-care piece, and foster parents need that very same element of self-care. So when foster parents need that time for themselves to recover, to reground themselves, to take some time for themselves, because it is work. Excuse me, providing foster care is work. So when they need a break, there are relief foster parents or respite foster parents who can step in, care for that child while the foster caregivers can take a break for themselves, or have a night out, or take an overnight away to be able to recenter themselves. And regardless of the length of time that a child is in care, every contribution is important. And before we go to the next slide, I want to emphasize regardless of length, every contribution is important. And I say that because in the province of Ontario, what we're also seeing is a decline of children coming into the foster care system. Now, that is a great thing, because as Children's Aid Societies province-wide, our focus, which I've mentioned already, is really to keep children with their families and their communities first and foremost. There is a recognition and acknowledgement and decades of research that show that Black and Indigenous children in Ontario are overrepresented in the child welfare system and in the foster care system. And as Children's Aid Societies, taking that knowledge and acknowledging that there is that disparity, that there is that disproportionate representation of Black and Indigenous children in care, we have been making even stronger efforts to look at family and kin and different ways to support families and kin so that children can stay home in their communities, right? And what that's resulted in over the last few years is a decrease of children coming into care. And I don't say that as a deterrent for you if you're thinking about fostering or if you're interested in fostering, but it's important that you know this, because what happens is the more foster parents we have, and we do need foster parents, which Latika will talk about later on, we do need caregivers, but what it means is the more caregivers that we have, right? And we talked a little bit about the cultural aspect and the cultural piece. The more caregivers we have, the better ability Children's Aid Societies have to provide a home that best matches the needs of the children that are coming into care. So if we have a wider representation of cultures, if we have a wider representation of skills, right? What that does is, for that child that does come into care, Children's Aid Societies can look at the pool of foster parents who are available and provide the best match possible to that child. And we'll go to the next slide. The next few slides are very short, I promise. So what do caregivers provide? So we expect foster parents to provide, first and foremost, a safe and stable home. Children are going through transition. They've experienced a trauma, being separated from their family, coming into foster care. So first and foremost, we're looking for development. We're looking for foster parents to be able to provide that structure. And once that sense of safety is developed for that child, then that caregiver can also provide that support and that guidance that was likely always there at the beginning. But when a child feels safer, they're more receptive to accepting that support and that guidance and that love from our foster parents. And again, the role of the caregivers, Lori's going to go into that in more detail in her presentation, so we can move on to the next slide. And why do children come into care? So we talked about this a touch, but children come into care because their families are struggling. So they've experienced trauma, or they've been exposed to physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse. They may have been exposed to severe domestic violence or intimate partner violence in their homes. They could have experienced neglect, abandonment. In my example, parents struggle with mental health issues, substance use issues. And there are times when families even say, you know, we can't manage this anymore. Can you care for our child? And the child comes into our care on a voluntary basis, right? So children can come into care for a number of different reasons. And when that happens, our children are coming into care with these experiences. And what what I like to say, and what you may have heard before, is that children come into foster homes with bags that you haven't packed, right? So they come into your home with struggles, challenges, experiences that you're not necessarily aware of. So it's really about discovering the needs of the child, understanding their experiences, and then being able to provide support for them in the way that they need. Next slide. So the other piece is, and I talked about this briefly, is when a child comes into care and we're not able to reunite them with their biological family, with their kinship family, the other option that we look at for permanency is adoption. So it's important to understand that fostering is one role and adoption is a separate role, okay? And what sometimes happens is there are situations where a child will need an adoptive home, and there have been times where foster parents decide to step up and say, you know what, we've cared for this child for this long, we'd like to put forward a plan for adoption. And in that case, you know, the adoption teams here with our Children's Aid Societies, they assess those plans. So it's important to understand that fostering and adopting are two different paths. Fostering is providing temporary care. Adoption is permanent care. That child becomes a part of your family formally, right? And you become their legal guardian. So there are times when you as a foster parent may express an interest in adopting a child after you foster them. That's a possibility. But the important piece to understand, is to take away here, is that fostering is intended to be a temporary service, and adoption is a different kind of path, a different road. And if you're looking to provide permanent care for a child, then adoption would be the more appropriate route to take. I actually have a note here for the last 2 minutes, but I have just wrapped up. So thank you very much. I look forward to questions at the end of the session. And I turn it over to Saji and to Lori, who's coming up next. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie, for walking us through the concept of foster care, and they're briefly into their roles, and then from providing us with the specific examples from your own practice. Thank you very much for that. Before I move on to the next presenter, Lori, just want to remind the participants, if you have any specific questions, please send your questions through the chat box so that we will have that ready for the panelists to answer towards the end of this presentation. Okay, moving on, our next presenter, speaker of the day is Lori Baptiste. And Lori is a colleague of mine. Lori holds an undergraduate degree in psychology from University of Toronto and postgraduate diploma in addictions, treatment and prevention from Georgian College. She has worked for the York Children's Aid Society, York Region Children's Aid Society for the past 20 years. Since 2001, she has experience working with different functions like intake department, emergency after hours, screening, kinship service, and particularly in foster care since 2010. Lori is a co-facilitator of the new home cluster and is involved with the leveling committee for fostering. Lori enjoys working with foster families and children, and she always says that seeing children thrive while residing in care is the best part of being a foster care support worker. And Lori will talk to us about the day-to-day responsibilities of a foster parents in details and the supports available for foster parents to be successful. Welcome, Lori, to this online learning session, and over to you.
Thanks, Siju, and thank you very much for the warm welcome and being here. So I am a foster care support worker and support currently 15 homes, 15 active foster homes who have and care for children, either full-time respite or just on an emergency basis. And I'm very happy to talk to you a little bit more about what foster parents do and what makes a successful foster parent. So successful foster parents definitely view children as worthy and consider parenting important. Of course, foster parents have to definitely have a real enjoyment of parenting, having children in their home, and have to have a basic understanding of children, their development and their needs, have a desire to learn and grow personally and as a foster parent. And definitely it's helpful that they have an optimistic and positive outlook and view in life. They're definitely going to be role models for the children in their care. And they're also going to be working within a system and within a team, and having those attributes and willing to work in that way is definitely a plus. Foster parents are patient and consistent, yet able to meet new challenges with flexibility. And this is for any challenges that may arise, either for the child, for taking care of the child, but also working within a system and working within a team of professionals. And foster parents that are able to ensure their own physical and emotional wellness. So having insight into how fostering is impacting themselves, their partners, their children, their daily functioning, and are able to have those check-ins and know themselves well and ensure that they are also meeting their own needs and their family's needs. Because as Stephanie really eloquently said, fostering can be quite challenging, and definitely there is a need to know yourself and to take care of others, obviously. And foster parents that are able to work with others in a professional team setting and be able to work with the biological family of the child or teen in their care. Foster parents that have a personal support network, and that could be friends, other family, connecting with other foster parents, having good connections with other professionals in the community. Often foster parents work very closely with schools as well. And so having that ability to have a personal support network is essential to fostering. And then I would also add on to this, just having the time to foster, because fostering is 24/7. It's, as a foster parent, you are the day-to-day caregiver to a foster child, and that can be all-consuming. That can be where the society, who is the guardian of the child, you as the day-to-day caregiver, the society is really leaning on you to ensure that children get to all appointments, get to all access, get to school, get to have time with friends, get to recreation. And that can be a lot. That can feel like a lot, and that can be very time consuming. So just having a check-in that you have enough time to foster and enough time to devote to fostering is also very important. One other quick point before the next slide is just making sure, too, that everyone in the family is on board with fostering. So fostering may not be just you in your home, but obviously your partner, your children, maybe others in the home, even pets. So making sure that everyone is feeling able and willing to commit and to share their time, their space, their resources, even for children, their parents with other children. That sets up for a very successful fostering experience. Okay, sorry, next slide. So there are 6 competency foster care or parent competencies that we look at as being essential in a fostering role. And the first one is protecting and nurturing children and youth. So that is things like having a safe and clean home environment, having the necessities for the child for their age. So young children having safety pieces in place for the care of young children, gates and outlet plugs and all that kind of stuff. And then having the resources like toys and having maybe parks nearby or books, music, all of that kind of stuff for caring for children and making sure that they have a routine, have a structure, have some predictability in their day-to-day life. The second competency is meeting developmental needs and addressing developmental needs. So as Stephanie spoke about, children come into care with their unpacked baggage. I loved that term that she used. You don't necessarily know essentially what that is going to be. You're going to be figuring that out sometimes with the team, but sometimes we do know. And so developmental needs can really often be because of abuse, neglect, and even abandonment. There's a lot of trauma that children have when they're coming into a foster parent's home. And so meeting those developmental needs is really understanding that trauma and understanding how to best support and respond to the child. And sometimes that trauma can impact other things as well, such as educational needs, behavioral needs. And often for foster children, there's also medical and other needs. So medical, dental, optical, and other kind of supports that are needing to be put into place. The next competency is supporting relationships between children and their families. And this one may seem obvious, but this is a really key piece. So making sure that as a foster family, you are open and willing to work with the child's biological family is very, very important. Supporting things like access, relationships, siblings who may be placed elsewhere or may be in different situations, even supporting extended access, supporting meetings with the family, and supporting the family in just giving them the information that they need about the care of their child to help the family thrive. Now, you're not going to have necessarily a close role with the family. That will be the protection worker's role. And the child will also have a children's services worker, and you will have a foster care support worker. But certainly making sure that children keep that connection to family, siblings, and others is essential and one of your key roles. And then for connecting children and youth to safe and nurturing lifetime relationships is essentially very similar, but that is also speaking to being a good role model to healthy relationships for a child that may not have seen that before. Understanding that your impact as a foster parent is that of someone typed in unsung hero. And I think that that's very true. So that you are making an impact in that child's life. So your ability to provide a consistent and stable placement is absolutely essential. And working through some tough or challenging times or behaviors, and a commitment to that child during their temporary time in foster care is going to be essential. And then the last one, positively reinforcing a child or youth's heritage or cultural identity. Excuse me, identity needs in fostering is very, very important. Something Stephanie spoke about as well. And identity needs could be so many things. So it, heritage, culture, religion, language, sexual orientation, gender, so many identity needs. Whatever that child needs is what the agency needs to be sensitive to, focus on, and put supports in place for. So currently, the agencies, the society that I work with anyways, is putting in place more resource supports or a resource support person to help facilitate and kind of bridge in supports for identity needs that are very unique to the child and to their family. And this is definitely something that a foster parent needs to be kind of on board with and okay with, and open to children of various backgrounds and children of various identity needs. So to do all this, foster parents need supports. That is a definite. And as discussed, a foster parent does receive a foster care support worker when they're an approved home and they're active and available to receive a child. That foster care support worker is kind of a lot to them. That it's their advocate, their sounding board, a mediator sometimes, someone that helps them navigate the system, understand the system, helps them link to training resources that might be helpful, someone that helps with during the placement of a child, would come and visit them, and would touch base with them and would attend meetings with them, and really talk about things honestly and openly and have a trusting relationship with, and navigate issues and challenges with. And then when a placement, when a child has either been reunited with family or gone to kinship, which would be extended family or friends or someone with a connection with that child, your foster care support worker is really there to support you. Because oftentimes this is very difficult. You've cared for a child and then you've let the child go. And while you're very happy that the child has moved on and they've reunited or they've found their permanent next step for them, sometimes foster parents feel loss, and sometimes foster families and their children feel loss that is significant. And so the foster care support worker is really there to debrief those times and to plug in supports and to reflect, and to do kind of post-placement work and to look at, okay, we survived this, or, oh, that was really challenging, and what's going to be the next step? And some people are very much like, that was wonderful, I want to do that again. I want to help another child. So your role with your foster care support worker is really essential. Other supports are after hours support. So if you had an emergency at nighttime or on the weekend, you could call an after hours line. You also have the child's care team. They're going to work very closely with you as well. They are going to have meetings with you, require you to give frequent updates. They're going to check in with you. They're going to want to know the child through your eyes. and plan for the child with you and plan next steps with you. So you work with them very, very closely as well. And then also for support, in-service or ongoing training is always provided, and you can choose training that you're most comfortable with or that's needed. And as well, there's Pride in-service training, which I think Latika will kind of touch on more. But certainly there's mandatory trainings for you to take, and there's lots of training opportunities. And at York CAS, we definitely recommend the mandatory trainings, as well as at least 25 training credits completed yearly, so that foster parents are staying very current with foster care updated policies, procedures, needs, just kind of current cutting edge parenting or specialized parenting resources. At York CAS, we also have a website for our foster parents, and you have access to many things through there: forms, policies, training, a link to other foster parents, a daily kind of update about what's new, what's happening, links to resources, links to social or celebrations in the community. So that has actually been very helpful. And every CAS has a foster parent association as well. So that is an actual foster parent body that is just foster parents, that is there to support each other and provide peer support, mentorship, check-ins, meetings, updates, and also it's an advocacy body for foster parents, and it's something that's also very helpful and something that we recommend new foster homes to join. And also another support is access to children's mental health, other services, other community services, social activities and recognition events. We also do have a drives program if needed. We do recognize that some people can't be everywhere all at once. And although we do recommend that foster parents attend meetings, appointments, obviously access with their foster child, they're in a pinch, the drives department can be used, and that is also something that's probably very much support. And relief. So once a month, foster parents at York CAS are prepaid 2 days of relief for each child placed, and they can use that resource in any way they would like, but most foster parents do choose to look at relief through an approved caregiver or an approved foster home, where they can, much like every other family, where someone can care for a child for a little bit of a break for the foster parents or the foster family, and it's just a time for re-energizing, you know, getting energy back up, and maybe even some sleep if it's a young child. And it's highly recommended. Also, when you have your own children, that you have that a little bit of time just with them as well monthly. And it can be very positive for the foster child as well if the relief is very consistent. Okay, sorry. And then financial supports. So fostering is not a means to earn an income. There is a per diem that is reimbursed to you per child for caring for a foster child placed, but it is not a way to earn a regular income whatsoever. It is non-taxable, and it really just covers the cost of a child's care. The per diem at York CAS also includes funds for clothing, and then on top of that, funds for recreation, health, dental, anything else that the child might need in that regard is covered through additional funding. You would work closely with your child's worker to talk about those things and to get approvals for things like that. And you would need to stay within a budget. Over time, with experience and ongoing training and skill, foster parents may be provided with an additional daily amount to acknowledge their expanded skill and experience as a foster parent. Which leads us to our next slide. So as foster parents develop skills and experience and training and become much more versed in the child welfare system and working with foster children, there are different levels of fostering. And this really just speaks to matching. At York CS, we have a placement team that actually, so when a child needs to come into care, they are matched with a home with the best skills and experience, training, also cultural and other needs. And so there's different levels of fostering that can occur. So when a foster parent first comes on board, they're more of a regular foster parent, and they would receive more of a child with lesser needs. And so we would consider that a regular level foster parent. And then as time progresses, there is a leveling criteria, and foster parents can move on to either specialized parenting or treatment level parenting. And the other type of foster parent is a relief or respite foster parent. And they are the ones that would provide support to foster placements just for those relief moments. So typically a Friday to Sunday night or a day or babysitting or whatnot, they would support the primary foster parent. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori, for walking us through the competencies and the supports available for foster parents. So we'll move on to the next presentation. Our third speaker of the day is Litika James. Litika James is another colleague of mine, and Litika holds a master's degree in social work with more than 20 years of experience in various positions, including clinical counseling since 2000. Litika has been working with York CA Children's Aid Society since September 2007. She joined as a foster parent recruiter. Litika also provides counseling to children and youth in care in the private sector. Litika is the mother of 2 adult children, and now she has an interest in holistic healing and approach to life. Litika will walk us through the recruitment process involved in becoming a licensed foster parent. Welcome, Litika, and over to you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here today. And a lot has been covered so far from Stephanie and Lori. So I'm just going to tie up our presentation with a few specific facts specific to York Region Children's Aid. And then I'll talk about the inquiry process with recruiting of foster parents and how to become a foster parent with your local CAS. So the next slide. So a few facts with York Region Children's Aid specifically. There are approximately 279 children currently in our care. This includes youth living independently with our support. So half of our kids in care currently are our teenage group, so 15 and over. And as I last looked, it's about the age of 15 to 25 is our biggest in-care group. And so that is our biggest need right now as we talk about homes that are needed currently is teenage beds. And with about 80 resource homes now in our system, there is that specific need for homes that will take in teenagers sibling groups, and of course, we're always in need of baby beds. And homes that will take special needs or complex needs. So that's kids coming into care with dual diagnosis, sometimes with conduct disorder, and perhaps facing anxiety or depression, a learning disability, tied in with perhaps a mental health issue. So when we're looking at foster parents today, we're looking at foster parents that will consider a range of kids to be flexible in their age range, and mainly for kids that are older with complex needs as well. Stephanie and Lori already talked about our foster parents and what we're looking for. And we're all obviously looking for homes that are diverse, because we are looking to match kids appropriately. Foster parents in York Region reflect our broad spiritual, cultural, economic, and lifestyle of our diverse community. To become a foster parent, you have to be 21 years of age and over. You can be married, single, same sex. You could be with or without children. I get this question a lot about whether you could foster and work full time, and certainly you can. And depending on your support system, you can certainly do both. If you are a parent yourself, you know how it is in juggling work and home life. So that would be the same thing if a child would be placed in your home. And as you know, foster parents, as many parents out there, they wear many hats. And so they act as mentors, teachers, role models to our children. What I find most about foster parents coming on board is their motivation to foster is really to help the community and give back. And Lori touched on this, is making sure you have the extra time and commitment, because it is a huge commitment. But all have a genuine interest in the well-being of children, and they all love children and want to see their helping in their healthy development as they move along. And so talking about the inquiry process and how to become a foster parent, the first step is to first inquire. And this could be through various ways, through just a basic phone call to your agency. You might have some questions prior to see if you qualify or meet the requirements. If you're in a position to do this, that screener will take the time to talk about your situation and whether it's the right timing most of the time. But that's through just calling us, or even through an email inquiry. Most agencies now have an online application, so you can do it that way first. As you inquire, you might be invited to an information session just like this. Not all agencies hold info sessions. However, that is something that you would be introduced to in this type of format, getting more of the general information about foster care and what that means. We do hold one monthly at York Region Children's Aid. So if you're interested, you can look on our website and to find out the next upcoming ones. Application. So after the session or the inquiry, a home visit will be set up at your home, an initial home visit. You'd be asked to fill out an application. And at the agency currently, I'm the one that does the initial intake, and I do the initial home visit at the home. And what that entails is talking more about what fostering will entail, and what you will be asked to provide and have ready for your home to become a licensed resource home. So the ministry has certain standards of where what you would have to have in place. So a home safety check is done just to do a walkthrough through your home to point out you know, if your home is equipped with smoke detectors and carbon and fire extinguisher, and if you're taking babies, if the home is pointing out how your home would need to be set up to be baby proofed and so forth. So after going all the forms that you're going to need to move forward with providing police checks, medicals, references, you will be asked to complete certain initial forms to move on to the next step. And if you show interest in moving to the next step, it is the Pride Pre-Service training component that you'll get involved with next. It's a 9-week training course done now through COVID. It's done virtually through OAC, our Ontario Association of Social Workers. It's every agency, actually, I can only speak to York right now. Every agency is different, and it might open up later in the fall. I'm not sure. We usually had it in-house for the 9 weeks, but when I say 9 weeks, I can also say that some agencies has cramped it up into a 4-week program, but nevertheless, it is including of 9 courses, and you can do that at your own pace. Right now, virtually, you have a week to finish course 1 and then so forth. And then as you're doing Pride Pre-Service training, you're assigned to a home assessor who will complete a safe home study. And I speak to that a little bit in the next slide, but once you've got your documents in, your training's all completed, and you've done the home study process, which is the interviews, which I'll speak to, you're approved to be a foster home. And in this process altogether takes an average about 6 months. And so as I talked about the Pride Pre-Service training, what Pride stands for is Parent Resources for Information Development and Education. And it is mandatory for all applicants to complete. And this training prepares you to carry out the roles and responsibilities necessary to be a successful foster parent. And, you know, again, let you build the skill set of what you need to do. And Lori, I can see when we talk about the competencies involved, Lori did touch on the 6 Pride competencies for Pride. And I'm not going to go into talking about each topic of Pride, but if you do go on our website or any CAS, you could see that well, really quickly, it's kind of connected to the competencies, but session 1 is talking about connecting to Pride. And this is where you're going to learn about the unique opportunity to learn about the world of foster care and adoption through the stories of children receiving services. And you will discover how families are licensed and certified for this work. Session 2 talks about teamwork towards permanence. And session 3 is meeting developmental needs, attachment. So the basics of child growth and development will be considered, and how abuse, neglect, and trauma impact a child's attachment, development, and behavior. Session 4 talks about meeting developmental needs loss, and that's huge as children experience loss, and how that overwhelming sense of loss can slow growth and development in children. And that's touched upon in a whole session on its own. And then session 5 talks about strengthening family relationships. And we touched on that earlier with considering how the team supports the goal of reunification. Session 6 talks about meeting developmental needs discipline. So you do learn about appropriate and inappropriate child discipline, the challenge of discipline, and the goals. You'll learn about the agency's policy on discipline and discuss why physical punishment is not permitted. Session 7 is continuing family relationships. And We talked about permanence and that goal, and efforts to support families and to place children back in their birth families or in a home of a relative. And then session 8 is about planning for change. It's a practical view of what to expect during the first few hours, days, and weeks of the placement of your child's placement in your home. And this is where you'll get to learn what to ask the worker and how to talk to a child when they first arrive. You know, what should I have my foster child call me? And so all of these are talked about and explored, and it's making sure that the child feels comfortable and welcome in your home, and making an informed decision is the 9th session. It's usually a panel session where we have adoptive parents, birth parents, workers, and a former child in care talk about their experiences, and it's a time to ask questions. And you're just making that final decision on making that commitment to becoming a foster parent or adoptive home. So that is, the next slide is, and as I mentioned, as you're doing the Pride pre-service training, a home assessor is assigned to your home, and they would be conducting a safe home study, which is the structured analysis family evaluation. And this is a chance to share your story with the worker, and mainly the interviews take about an average of 4 to 5 visits, depending on who's in your home and how much is talked about during, how much history is taken. You're asked to go through a series of getting to know you questions. We're looking to see if, you know, we're both mutually deciding if this is going to be a good fit. And some questions sometimes are asked of, you know, how do you view children? How did you grow up? How did your parents parent you? You know, what's your outlook on children? If you have a partner, you know, what are your different parenting styles? Is everyone in the family supportive? How do you feel about, what are your concerns? What are your worries? And that's when the assessor is taking down some of the, you know, strengths and weaknesses, and we work on that. We build on that. No family's perfect, so we are working on with, you know, some challenge, some barriers that you might have to do this job. Well, we're gonna see how we can help you and support you in being successful in this role. And then that is it. I think that's my last slide. So again, we talked about a lot today about what is foster care and what we're looking for in foster parents, and how the process manifests and takes place and what's involved. So thank you.
Thank you, Ladika, for walking us through the recruitment process, and also explaining the trainings and the home study process involved in this recruitment process. Now, after listening to professionals directly involved with foster parents, foster parent recruitment and their support, we are now going to listen to a foster family about their lived experience as foster parents over the last 7 years. Our final presenters for this day is Mr. Anthony Thomas and his wife, Ernestine. Anthony Thomas Payapalli has been working in the field of child welfare for the last 35 years. He has completed his MSW from Mahatma Gandhi University in India, and had worked in India for about 16 years in the field of child welfare, both in the government organizations and non-governmental organizations, before immigrating to Canada in 2002. Initially, Mr. Thomas worked with York CIS as a frontline worker for about 4 years, and then moved to the Catholic Children's Society of Toronto, where he is currently working as a senior child protection worker. Mr. Thomas was one of the founders of MASWO, and is currently one of the advisors of MASWO. Mr. Thomas' wife, Ernestine Thomas, has a degree in accounting and accounting and finance, with about 16 years of accounting experience working in Caritas India, New Delhi. Ernestine is currently working from home as a tax consultant. In 2013, Mr. Thomas and Mrs. Thomas decided to foster children for York Region Children's Society, understanding that they have a calling for fostering, and they felt that the fostering is their mission. Anthony and Ernestine will share their experience as foster parents over the last 7 years with us. Welcome, Thomas and Ernestine, and the floor is yours.
So thank you, Siju, for this nice introduction, and Team MASWO for organizing this active event. And we all know that we have a platform where we can come together and discuss about a number of issues, including issues like fostering, subjects like fostering. Also, thank you, Latika, Stephanie, and Lori for talking a lot about foster care. We are here basically to talk about our experience. Can you put the next slide, please? So, friends, I'm here not to talk about myself, but about my family's experience as foster parents. Have you heard about the concept called ITAV? ITAV? It takes a village. That's one I'm talking about. To keep a child safe and happy in your home, whether it is your biological child or foster child, the whole family is to be involved. And the community at large should be a part of the overall development of these children. This is applicable very much in our case. My family, generally known as Thomas family, consists of my wife, Ernestine Thomas, who is sitting near to me, with me, and our two boys, Anton Thomas and Wenzel Thomas. My wife, as Siju said, she works in the field of income tax, and my older son also works in the field of income tax department. And my younger son, he just completed his undergraduate degree from Trent University. Many of you know that, as Siju again said, I work in the field of child protection for many, many years. I'm very happy to share with you here that my son Wenzel Thomas, he was awarded a scholarship by York Region CIS under a program that they have called Youth Assisting Youth. So for him being a nice brother to his foster brothers, that's the award that he got. It's a scholarship for 3 years when he was in the university. Okay, can you put the next slide, slide 23, please? We would like to talk to you about our journey to become foster parents. It was in the middle of September 2012. We thought about fostering when our older son moved to university residence in Guelph. We felt that there's a vacuum created in the house by the absence of our son, which also created loneliness in the house. Our younger son felt that he was home alone. We wondered what to do to remove the loneliness in the house and bring happiness. We thought why we should not open our house and heart to children who need our love and affections. While working in the field of child protection, I had the feeling that there were children out there who would benefit from a loving and caring home. That too, culturally specific homes where their specific needs are met. We approached York Region CIS since we lived in York Region and expressed our interest to look after children in need of foster care. It took almost a year for YCAS to approve our home as provincially licensed foster home. During the approval process, we successfully completed all the required prior training. Simultaneously, we got a worker assigned to complete the safe home assessment. At the end, in August 2013, our home was approved as a provincially licensed foster home by York Region CIS. We prefer to care for children, especially with a South Asian background, boys or girls in the age group of 6 to 12, and only boys in the age group of 13 to 18. This was because of our preference, keeping in mind the age of our own biological children. But you have your own preferences if you are interested to foster. Let us talk about the profile of the children that we have so far placed with us. So far, as I said, we looked after 12 children and 1 girl and 11 boys, including the youth with us now. He is a 15-year-old boy currently in high school, grade 9. Let me tell you a secret. Teen boys are the most easiest group to work with. I don't know whether you agree with me, but that's our experience. Many people say that that's the most difficult group, but for us, that's the most easiest group that we ever had. So in our fostering life, we regarded and practiced anti-oppressive approach. If you look at the profile of these children, you will understand it clearly. We did not treat the children differently because of their caste, color, creed, or sexual identity or orientations. Out of the 12 children, we had 10 of them were Asian descents. One was a black child, and the other child was a South African white child. If you look at this, their religions, 4 were Muslims, 5 were Christians or Catholics, and 3 children did not identify or practice any sort of religion. If you look at the sexual identity or orientation of these children, we had 11 children who identified as heterosexuals, and while 1 child who came under rainbow spectrum. You know that the needs of every child is different, and we ensured that we were with them in the journey towards their success. Even though most of the children were reunited with their parents or extended family members, some of them remained with us long term. Let us talk to you about 4 of them who were traditionally known as crown wards, or currently they are known as children in long-term care. And 2 of them, they were with us for more than 4.5 years each. One went to Humber College and successfully completed his education in acting and modeling. 2 others are in college currently. One is at York at Seneca College, completing his 3-year diploma in computer science. And one is attending plumbing and electrician course at George Brown College. The other child in long-term care who is currently with us, he is in grade 9 and he's with us for more than 4.5 years. While we were preparing this note, we asked 3 of our children, what did they like most in our house? One of them said, you took me around wherever you went, looked after me well, and made me feel a part of your family. This child was with us for 4.5 years old, and he's currently 21.5 years old, and he is in independent living. We will be very happy to tell you that he visits us very frequently, at least every other weekends, and spends time with us. We asked the other child the same questions. He said, I got lots of love and affections from your family. That's why when you invited me, I came and participated in your wedding anniversary celebrations. We are so happy to thank him for singing a song for us on our wedding anniversary. This child is currently 21.5 years old, and he feels comfortable coming and spending time with us. And the other child, the 3rd child, we asked the same questions, and he said, I have a loving home now, and I know that you will never push me out of this house. You are my parents, and I have 2 brothers in this house too. Next slide, please. Even though fostering brings a lot of rewards and personal fulfillment, it does not come without any challenges. Many times, these children come with a traumatic experience due to severe abuse or neglect, domestic violence, mental health concerns, substance abuse issues, disability, behavioral challenges, and involvement with police or the law. They have their own unique diversity and cultural needs also. These children are removed from their homes and from their loved ones, and they leave everything behind and come to us. It takes longer than expected for them to trust you and settle down in your house and to become a part of your family. These children will continue to challenge you, but with your love, understanding, and ability to keep them safe in your house with support, they will get well connected with your family. Challenges do not end here. It will continue when these children leave your home, either to get reunited with their parents or family, or when they go for independent living. It's a challenge, but you let them go in their best interest. Next slide, please. Dear friends, in our fostering life, we are faced with ongoing challenges, but we know that we are not alone. We have lots of support from our society. I'm talking about the York Region Children's Society in this case. There's a foster care support worker assigned to our family. The worker frequently visits us. or we can always call and talk to her. We are so happy to inform you that Lori Baptist is our resource worker for the last 8 years. She's the one who just made the presentations. Lori, thank you very much on behalf of our family for your continued understanding and support in our fostering journey. Besides the support from our resource worker, we get support 24/7 from emergency after-hour service workers if required. Ongoing training and ability to work in a professional team are our memorable experience in our fostering life. Next slide, please. Dear friends, you have heard a lot about the story about the bird library. Have you heard this story? BIRD, bird library. This was a library started in Calcutta in India almost 20 years ago. Instead of lending books, this particular library lent birds to its members. You can take a birds for a period of 1 month or 2 months. Then you have to return these birds to the bird library. Calcutta could not continue this program for a long time because they felt that these birds get attached with the loaner and it was hard for them to return the birds to the library. So they consciously decided to discontinue the bird library. If this was in the case of birds, what about the children who are with foster parents? And these children have to leave and get reunited with their biological parents. What about the emotional attachment these children have developed with the foster parents? Yes, friends, fostering brings a lot of emotional trauma for the foster parents and for the children. But the encouraging thing is that you have made a lasting difference in the life of these children, which the child will carry for their life ever, and you will carry it in your life. Thank you, friends. Thank you for listening to us. That's our experience.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas, for sharing your experience as a foster parent. And that reminds me about, many people say that, once you are a foster parent, you're always a foster parent. Even after stop fostering, you're still maintaining the relationship with those children you fostered. And although initially Stephanie mentioned that, this is a short-term arrangement, but, during that short-term care arrangements, you are creating long-term, everlasting connections with the child who needs our support. So that's all our presentations, and now the floor is open for questions. I have received a few questions, but if there are other questions, the participants, they can write it on in the chat box. And before we get into that session, I just want to clarify that the answers our panel is going to answer based on their experience with their own particular agencies. There can be slight differences in terms of their answers because, as you know, there are many children's aid societies in the province. So each region, each area, and that the reason I'm mentioning is that we have participants from across Ontario. So some of the answers are specific to that. The questions or answers are going to be area specific. So if you need any further clarity, I always encourage you to connect with your local children's aid societies to get more information about their particular practices. Although the themes and the general the recruitment process are the same, there can be slight differences, depends on the agency or the area where you live.
I just wanted to share with you one small thing. While I was speaking with you, my wife became a little emotional. I know the reasons why, because, I talked to the story of this bird library. It's not easy, right? We look after children, and at the end, we know that we want them to go and live with their parents. That's their best choice, if possible. And they have to become a part of their family. We have to let them go, even though we do not want them to go. We get attached to their life. They get attached to us, right? But ultimately, we should say, not goodbye. I know all the children, those who left our house, we have connections with them. They come back and share food with us, time with us, a lot of things with us, okay? I just wanted to mention. So I asked requested my wife to share her experience. She said she will become more emotional, so she did not share. Okay, so she's here with me. Don't worry, she's here. So we are trying to control ourselves, our emotions. That's a part of fostering, right? We love these children. You cannot live with them because they're becoming a part of directly, indirectly a part of your life, your emotions, your feelings, your love, and that's hard. Okay. Just wanted to share with you because she got up and went to the side and she was she's standing there with the paper to clear her voice, eyes or whatever. So she's here. That's a part of life. That's a part of fostering life. Okay, go ahead, Siju, please.
Thank you, Thomas. I have, as I said, and I have a few questions. So maybe I'll read my first question, and maybe I'll ask Lori to answer that. I mean, I knew that probably this question was going to come because one of the worry to become a foster parent is that we don't know these children, like as Mr. Thomas explained. They come from different background, different experiences, both positive and negatives. What if some children coming into care make a complaint against you? What are the process involved and what are the supports available for the foster family, or do they need to go through the same kind of investigation process as a normal family need to go through?
Sorry, I was just unmuting myself. I would say as a foster care support worker who, this is a concern of many of our applicants but also our ongoing foster parents. There are ways that working together, these type of situations can be supported. So while everyone who fosters you may feel in a very vulnerable situation, I would say the stronger relationship you have with the agency, your foster care support worker, the better communication that you have with the child's worker, the family services worker, your worker, the more so we can work as a team to avoid unnecessary complaints and investigations. But I would say, to be really real, sometimes there are complaints, and sometimes when information is shared that meets a criteria for a response, sometimes there does need to be an investigation or looking into concerns that is done with a neutral worker and with the support and also with the support of your worker. And we try very, very hard to make sure that everyone is respected in that process. So while we can't avoid all allegations and conflicts and other things, I would say that your worker and you would work very strongly together to try to remedy some of those situations. And that's where working with families becomes so important as well. So the better the relationship you have with the family and the more the family knows and can trust in the care of their child with the foster parent, the less those allegations and conflicts and other things are going to happen. So I don't know if Latika or Stephanie wanted to add to that. I know that's a challenging one and probably worries a lot of people.
Hi, it's Stephanie here. Thank you so much, Lori. To piggyback on what she was saying, right? It's important to acknowledge that foster care does mean you will be providing care to these children within a bit of a fishbowl, right? You have a lot of people who are going to become part of your life. You're going to have your support worker, the child's worker, the family's worker, all of those people that Lori had mentioned, you're suddenly now also welcoming into your home. So yes, complaints may occur. Yes, allegations can happen. Yes, that could potentially mean a child protection investigation. But as Lori said, being able to work cooperatively with all of these service professionals, as well as the biological family of the children you're caring for, is very important. And one of the things that is important to know as well is, as a foster parent in the province of Ontario, as a Children's Aid Society, we have a requirement to hold conferences on a regular basis. So when a child is first placed in your home, a conference will take place within the first 30 days. And at that conference, ideally would include yourself, your worker, the child's family, the family's worker, the child's worker, and depending on the age of the child might participate in that conference as well. And this is really one of the early opportunities for you as a new foster parent to make an initial connection with the biological family. And I know that can be intimidating for people who are thinking about fostering, thinking about, oh my goodness, we're going to take care of somebody else's child. We're going to have to, you know, are they going to hate me? Are they not going to like me? And what I can tell you from my years of experience, and Lori, Latika, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of the times biological families aren't, if they're feeling anger, if they're feeling frustration, if they're feeling resentment, it's not towards you, it's actually towards the agency, because it's the agency that made the decision for that child to come into care. So you as a foster family actually have an opportunity to say, hey, to the biological family, I'm here. I don't, you know, what you're doing with the agency, you know, that is your work to do with the agency, but I'm here because I'm here to help provide the best care for your child. So please let me know, how can I do that? You know, what would you like to see happen? I know it's really tough that your kids aren't with you right now, but you and we can work together to provide the best care possible for your child. And the more you can develop that relationship with the biological family, the chances of complaints or allegations being made in the future certainly lessens. And this conference takes place on a recurring basis. So with the help of your workers, with the guidance of your support worker, ideally you'll be able to build that relationship. And depending on the age of the child, they may have access visits as well. So there are also opportunities throughout the entire process for you to continue to build a positive working relationship with the biological family, which will help reduce the possibility of complaints and allegations and investigations.
Thank you, Laurie and Stephanie, for answering that questions and making it very clear the process involved in that situation. Now, the next question, I think, Stephanie, it's directly to you because it's specific to Catholic Children's Aid Society. The question is about whether or not does your agency accept same-sex couples as foster parents or approve them as foster parents?
Yes, we do. So it is not lost on me that I work for a Catholic agency, and there is a long history of oppression and challenges when it comes to even, you know, how the Catholic faith and identity has interacted with the Aboriginal population, how the Catholic faith and tradition has interacted with same-sex couples. But what I'm here to say to all of you is, as a Catholic agency, we are welcome to everyone. There is an understanding that you can be Catholic and you can be gay, right? Children, families can identify in many different ways, regardless of their faith. So when there are children whose family identifies as Catholic or they identify as Catholic, we have an obligation as a Children's Aid Society, again, to provide care that best meets the needs of the child. So we understand that means that, yes, there are going to be children and families who may identify as within the LGBTQ2S+ population. So when it comes to fostering, we are open to all identities to come forward and to foster with us.
Thank you, Stephanie. I see a question on the chat box from Ashley. Maybe Latika, you can answer that question. The question is, I'm a new social CAS worker, have 4 clients who are siblings living in a foster home. They are very happy with them, with the living situation. However, they complain that the family forced them to spend most of their time in their own rooms by doing their own activities. So what are the suggestions you can make, which Ashley could use as a worker to help the foster parents as well as the kids?
Oh, you know what? It's better to. I think in general, it's better to. And Lori, you could. That's why a lot of foster families we attach a support worker to, and I'm not going to go into details. I'm not going to actually. I think it's best to, because I don't know your whole situation, and it seems like there's a lot maybe more going on. But I think in a nutshell, what we were talking about today is that if you're fostering for an agency, you are given lots of support. Even the child, not only does each home, is there attached a foster care support worker, but that child has their own children's service worker attached to the home. So I think the best thing to do is, if you're struggling, I know when I was a resource worker for an agency, we would just sit down and problem solve and see, what would be the best way to go about resolving the issue. The role of the foster care support worker is also to give child management strategies as well, right, Lori? So I think you've been in that role too, and helping foster parents learn some strategies on child management and strategies to curb behavior. So I think my suggestion obviously is to get support from the agency in terms of how you can solve the problem. I think that's the best. I mean, that's my advice.
Thank you, Litika. There's also another question, and maybe I have another question I had received earlier. Maybe I will club it together. One is, are there any age limit in fostering? And then I'm clubbing that with the question from Saji here. What is the difference between foster home and relief homes? And can a family remain as relief foster home first and then later become a full-time foster home?
Yeah, actually, we actually have a lot of foster families requesting to start off as relief. So that's part-time, taking kids on the weekends, helping our internal foster parents whenever they need a break and they need respite or relief. And the same process it would be the same process as opening up as a full-time foster parent. So that what's good about maybe starting off as relief is that you've done the PRIDE training, you've done the home assessment, you've gotten all your documents and you're opened up, and then you can switch over anytime to do full-time fostering. So that is certainly, that certainly happens a lot.
And my other part of the question is, are there any age limit for fostering?
Oh, no. Well, we just say as long as you're 21 and over.
Okay, that's good. The Sajis has a second part of his question is he's asking me whether I could post the details of the GTA Children's Aid recruiters of all GTA Children's Aid societies in the group, which I can do. But at the same time, I would like to ask another question that I had before. Along with that question is, the question is this, are there any other agencies other than Children's Aid societies recruit foster parents? Is their recruitment process the same as CAS?
Hi, so there are Children's Aid societies, in my understanding in Ontario, is we operate our own kind of community of internal foster homes. So for example, the Catholic Children's Aid Society, if you apply to become a foster parent with us, you'll become part of the fostering community with the Catholic Children's Aid Society. And I believe that's the same with York. So if someone goes through an application with York's CAS, then they will be a foster home for the York Children's Aid Society. There are privately run foster care agencies that operate in Ontario. I can't speak specifically to how they run, what their recruitment process looks like, and what their assessment process looks like. My understanding is it looks different depending on which private agency you go to. So that is an option. However, the way that our agency operates, I believe York operates as well, is when a child does come into our care, we first look at who within our community of homes that we have already approved, who there best fits the needs of the child. And it's not until we determine that there is not a good fit within our complement of caregivers, it's not until that's determined that we look outside. So I mean, there are different pros and cons to fostering for different agencies or privately run agencies. So I would encourage you, if you're curious about fostering, again, to contact your local Children's Aid Society. You can even just contact their main number and just say, hi, I'm interested in fostering, and they can forward you to the appropriate person. Not every agency has a recruiter like Latika and I, right? So if you're not living in York Region, or if you don't live in the city of Toronto, the best option for you may be to just reach out to your local Children's Aid Society. As for the privately run agencies, you know, I can't speak too much to that, but you would, I guess, have to do your own research and do the same thing, call and inquire to hear what their assessment process is like.
Okay, and I will look for some information and post in the group if for those who are interested, for both agencies' information and also the private agencies' information. Thank you. I have another question here, is about the information sharing. How much information about foster parents will be shared with the biological parents if children are staying in foster care for a long time? Lori.
Sorry, I have to unmute there. The answer to that question is what the foster parent is comfortable with, but at a basic level, biological families do get to know and will get to know your family as they have access with your children, as they meet you, as they hear about their day-to-day life, as they attend meetings and plans of care. So while we can provide a certain level of privacy, such as not releasing your phone number, your address, and whatnot, sometimes there are limitations where children learn your phone number and learn where you reside and know what school what their new school is and their new teacher. And so sometimes those things, it's very hard to control. And that again, I know I'm probably answering the same way a lot, but that's where your relationship with the agency, with your support worker, with the child's worker and the family services worker, in determining are there any risks, are there any safety risks, or can I have an open relationship with this family, and not necessarily having to share everything about my life, but can I share little pieces where, you know, hey, there's, you know, me and my partner in my home, and or we have a dog, so you might hear about our dog, that kind of stuff, where you can kind of connect with the family again. So that's a tough one to answer. I hope I answered it somewhat okay. The other thing that comes to mind too is sometimes when in court, we can't always protect people's information as we would like to. So if there was ever like a summons of information, then we would need to give it. But those are extreme examples. So I don't know, Stephanie or Latika, if you wanted to add to that.
I think it depends on the age of the child, the care of the child. What I mean to say, let's say that a child is in long-term care, Crown Ward, long-term care, and the society does not have an open file with the child's biological parents any longer because child is in long-term care, right? So a lot of information, and especially if the child is a teenager, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old, you don't need to share anything. Child will share everything about the foster parents with the biological parents if they are in good relationships, right? So there is no right or wrong answer. There is no correct answer for that question. It depends on the age of the child, depends on the status of the child, depends on how long the child is remaining in a foster care situation. In my case, I really have a positive relationship with the biological family of the child that we are looking after. We didn't have a good experience with one child child's parents, but the rest of the families, we had a very positive, good, enriching, nice experience with. It depends. There's the correct answer for the question.
And also with social media, and now none of us are like no information is like confidential now. People, if they want, people can figure out, right? Okay, that's all the questions I have. Unless we don't have any other questions, maybe it's time to wind up.
Thank you very much for having us.
And thanks a lot for coming today, and then sharing your experiences with the recruitment and talking about the concept of fostering, and also Thomas family, coming and sharing, because this is a very rare opportunity, because I don't think I have come across many Malayali families fostering. I can only think of another family in this region, in the eastern zone, but other than that, my 1 decade of experience in Canadian child welfare, I have not come across any other Malayali families doing this. And thanks a lot for sharing your experiences and walking us through the process. Over to you, Alan.
Thank you, everyone. First of all, I am so blessed, and it was a great opportunity to thank these wonderful speakers. Usually I come up with script, but I have to put off my script because I want to thank from my heart. So on behalf of MASWO executive team, I would like to thank the wonderful speakers, Laurie, Latika, Stephanie, Anthony, and Siju, who coordinated this session. MASWO will be strongly supporting the community by continuing doing this kind of sessions. I never felt like, we have been doing many sessions, but I never felt like this was like a session. It was really like living experience. So we were living through this session. So thank you very much for coming and seeing and talking to us. I would like to wish everyone a great weekend and have a good rest of the day. And MASWO will be will be presenting all the sessions and everything on the MASWO social media platforms. So thank you, everyone. At the same time, I would also like to thank you, all the listeners who joined us for this wonderful session. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.